the Book of Thoth, and the danger of forbidden knowledge, the story of a man who was born of a virgin, died, and was resurrected 1,500 years before Christ, and what may have been the first magazine for adults in ancient Egypt, are just some of the topics we will see in today's video. This tale is one of the oldest surviving stories, originating in ancient Egypt and dating back to the Middle Kingdom. The narrative is inscribed on a papyrus that today is housed in a museum in St. Petersburg, Russia. The story is presented as a dialogue between an Egyptian officer and a despondent man under his command. Noticing his distress, the veteran officer approaches and decides to share a story from his youth, hoping to bring a spark back to the young man's soul. "I remember a journey," the officer begins, "a journey that began like any other, but soon turned into an odyssey of survival and discovery. With the wind blowing favorably and the Nile guiding their ship, the officer and his crew set sail for the unknown lands beyond the confines of Egypt. But fate had other plans for them. A violent storm arose, transforming the peaceful sea into a roaring monster. The waves pounded and, in the blink of an eye, the ship was torn apart, dragging everyone into the abyss. The officer awoke, the sun beating down on his face and the sand beneath him. He was alone on an unknown island. All his companions had disappeared. For days, he explored this unknown land, finding exotic fruits and animals never seen before. But the real discovery came when he encountered a giant snake, whose eyes glowed with an almost human intelligence. Far from being a threat, the snake introduced himself as the Lord of the Island and shared his own tragic story of shipwreck and loss. As the days turned into weeks, the snake and the officer developed an unusual bond. The creature shared secrets of the island, while the officer told stories of his homeland. Hope seemed lost, but the Lord of the Iceland had a vision. A ship is coming. In 4 months, it will take you back home. Time passed, and just as the serpent had predicted, an Egyptian ship appeared on the horizon. With tears in his eyes, the officer bade farewell to his friend, taking with him gifts from the island and a heart full of gratitude. Back at the camp, the officer looked at the young soldier and concluded,
"Life has its storms, but even in the darkness, there are lights of hope. Never forget that the gods are watching us and guiding our steps."
The young man, inspired by the story, nodded in appreciation. Stories have the power to change lives, and this one certainly had. There are more things that can change your life, like liking this video before continuing, leaving your comment to help me in future videos, as well as subscribing and activating notifications, which, okay, it won't be a big change in your life, but you will have entertaining content every week. This is an ancient Egyptian story written during the New Kingdom, specifically in the Middle Kingdom era. It is inscribed on a papyrus now in the British Museum. The stars were shining in the sky the night the pharaoh, a powerful but childless man, knelt before the gods, begging for a son to carry on his legacy. The gods, moved by his sincerity, blessed the queen with a son. But with every blessing comes a test, and shortly after his birth, the goddesses of fate predict an unfortunate future for the young prince. He will fall victim to a snake, a crocodile, or a dog. The pharaoh, in a desperate attempt to protect his beloved son, built a palace high in the mountains, far from the snakes and other dangers of the kingdom. There, the prince grew up, taught by the best masters, surrounded by luxuries but isolated from the outside world. However, rumors and stories always find a way to infiltrate, and one day the young prince discovered the truth about the prophecy that hung over him. With courage in his heart and determination in his eyes, the prince decided to face his destiny instead of running away from it. He mounted his horse and set out into the unknown, facing challenges that would test his courage. In the desert, a poisonous serpent arose, threatening to fulfill the first part of the prophecy, but an eagle, like a guardian angel, descended from the sky and saved the prince. On the banks of the Nile, a giant crocodile emerged with gaping jaws, but with cunning and skill, the prince overcame the beast, cementing his legend. However, love has a special way of complicating stories. During one of his travels, the prince met a beautiful princess. Their hearts became entwined in a forbidden love. and together they faced the wrath of a scorned husband, managing to escape and build a life in a hidden corner of the kingdom. In an ironic twist, it was the prince's affection for a small puppy, which he adopted on one of his travels, that ultimately led to their tragic end. Years passed, and one day, in an innocent game, the dog bit the prince. Although it seemed a minor wound, the infection ran through his veins, fulfilling the prophecy that had marked his life since birth. The story of the two brothers is one of the world's oldest literary narratives, originating in ancient Egypt. It is often considered a precursor to later tales and legends because of its universal themes and rich plot. This tale comes from the 19th dynasty, during the period of the New Kingdom of Egypt. The best preserved manuscript of this story is found in the Dorbanet Papyrus, which is in the British Museum in London. The story centers on two brothers, Anpu, the older brother, and Bata, the younger. Anpu is married, and Bata lives with him, serving not only as a brother, but also as a laborer on his lands. Bata is described as a young man with divine qualities and is highly forward by the gods. One day, in Anpu's absence, his wife attempts to seduce young Bata. However, Bata rejects her advances and flees. Enraged and humiliated, the wife fabricates a story, claiming to Anpu that Bata tried to force himself on her. Believing his wife, and filled with rage, Anpu seeks to kill Bata. To save himself, Bata defends himself, explaining the truth and, in a demonstration of his innocence, performs a magical act. Convinced of Bata's innocence but still disturbed, Anpu allows Bata to leave. Bata, heartbroken, retreats to the Cedar Valley and, with the help of the gods, creates for himself a wife. However, he warns Anpu to watch for a sign on a tankard of beer, which would turn cloudy if something bad were to happen to it. As the story progresses, the wife created for Bata betrays him, seeking power and status. Through a series of mystical and magical events, Bata dies and is resurrected several times, going through various transformations, first into a bull, then into a tree, and finally into a human being again. During his second life, Bata is born to a virgin woman in the form of a divine child. Eventually, he becomes pharaoh, while Anpu becomes his commander-in-chief. The story concludes with the mutual recognition of the two brothers and the punishment of those who betrayed them. Is a history of ancient Egypt written during the Greco-Roman, also known as Ptolemaic period. It focuses on the forbidden knowledge and power of the magical book of the god Thoth. Setne Kamwas, a prince and learned priest, hears of a magical book belonging to Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. This book promises supernatural power and knowledge to whoever possesses it. Despite warnings about its dangerous nature, Setne is irresistibly drawn to it. Setne discovers that the book is in the tomb of Naneferkaptah, an ancient wizard who faced misfortune after stealing the book from Thoth. Despite this, Setne descends to the underworld to steal the book. Inside the tomb, Setne finds the bodies of Naneferkaptah and his family. Naneferkaptah's spirit appears and tells his tragic story. Naneferkaptah stole Thoth's book, and as punishment, Thoth caused him and his family to suffer. Despite the return of the book, his wife and son died, and he himself ended up taking his own life. Naneferkaptah warns Setne about the consequences of taking the book, but Setne, driven by his desire, ignores the warnings and takes the book with him. After stealing the book, Setne faces a series of disasters. At a crucial point, he is seduced by a beautiful woman named Tabubu, who puts him in humiliating situations. Eventually, he discovers that it has all been an illusion created by the book. Reconnaissing the danger posed by the book and feeling remorse for his actions, Setne returns to the underworld and returns the book to Naneferkaptah. To atone for his sins, Setne also decides to honor the memory of Naneferkaptah and his family by appeasing the wrath of the gods. The tale of the Turin Papyrus is one of the most unique and provocative documents of ancient Egypt, not because of its religious or historical character, but because it offers a glimpse into the sexuality and humor of the time. The papyrus, which dates from the New Empire around 1150 BC, is currently housed in the Egyptian Museum in Turin, Italy. It is divided into two main parts: a section depicting a series of sexual activities and another section that appears to be a sort of comic strip or series of humorous vignettes. In the erotic section of the papyrus, it shows various men and women in a variety of positions. What is interesting is that the male figures are shown disproportionately large in comparison to the women.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
It is important to note that this is not an erotic manual in the modern sense of the term. Its exact purpose remains a matter of debate among Egyptologists. Some suggest that it may have been a form of entertainment or a luxury item for a member of the elite. Others believe it may have had ritualistic or magical purposes, possibly related to fertility. The second humorous section of the papyrus shows a series of vignettes depicting everyday situations, but with a humorous twist. The scenes include animals acting as humans in various comical situations. For example, there is a depiction of mice hunting cats and other animals performing human tasks. These vignettes inverted the natural order of things, which was probably a source of humor for the ancient Egyptians. If this seems curious to you, you should take a look at the video we have of the most perverted gods in Greek mythology.